All right, I'm going to mute and you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Noah Brock. I'm the MakerSpace coordinator in the Alkek library, and I'm here to give you a tour of AlkekOne, all the new renovated spaces on the first floor. And much of this is still in progress, being set up, but this will kind of give you an idea of what it's going to be like once we reopen. So I'm going to flip my camera around, and I'm actually standing inside the new entrance. So once we open, you will be able to come in directly to the first floor through this door. And this is down at the base of the main stairs. So coming in this way, if it will let me back in. Uh-oh. Maybe I waited too long. Let me pause this a second so I can push the door.
Okay, if anyone had doubts that we were live, we are live.
Okay, so I had to manually open the door because it actually trapped me in there. But this is the entrance lobbyway. There'll be some digital signage screens in here, potentially some artwork that's still being worked out. And as you come in, you'll walk in between all the elevators, and you can go up to any floor from this right here. But you keep walking in, you'll have the restrooms on your left, and you can see the main staircase on the right that goes up to the second floor. Straight ahead is the ITAC help desk, which is being relocated time this equipment in the MakerSpace through this kiosk. And if you walk out into the main space, which will be considered the design space, you'll be greeted with many computers. There'll be Microsoft Studio Surface Pros that are large touch screens that you can do any type of design work on. And then on these drafting tables, there'll be iMacs. So this could be used for actual hand drawing or digital design, or a combination of the two. And you can see there's one iMac mounted over at the end as a test. So walking over this way, we have the Immersion Studio, and there's currently a holographic display set up in here that is being projected above a book about astronomy. And this just cycles through different holograms. So students will be able to push different data to this. This could be a changing display throughout the year. This space will house a lot of different VR, AR equipment, different interactive screens, different VR headsets. And then through this big window here will be the control room, where there'll be some very high-end rendering computers that can handle the data that goes along with that. Back behind there, the Immersion Studio manager will be in that office. So coming back out into the main design space, I'm actually going to go around this corner and come back down the hallway next to the Immersion Studio. And this is going straight towards our new sound recording studios and production studio. So there's 2 reservable sound studios, and they'll each be set up with sound recording equipment. This is just kind of a example of one of them. It gets very quiet in here. And this one has some different equipment set up in it right now. And from this room, you actually have a view out into the hallway, both hallways, and into the production studio. Now, in the production studio, there'll be different sound equipment, different high-end computers for processing all of this data. We have a Yamaha digital and analog piano, so it can record directly as you play. There's 2 keyboard setups, different mixing stations, and there'll be 4 iMac Pros in here for crunching all of this data. There's also another pass-through door into the Immersion Studio manager's office and a storeroom for storing different equipment that we'll have. So now I'm coming back out the way I came, and I'm going to turn down this hallway that goes behind the ITAC desk. I'm currently walking towards the main staircase. So the main staircase is over to my right. You can see the elevators over there and the restrooms. If I turn to the left, I'm walking towards the 2 U-Star video studios. There was the old studio back over here, but I'll quickly take a peek into the new studio, which is a little bit bigger. It will have all new equipment set up in it. We've got a nice green screen in here. There's a wraparound curtain that can be pulled around the whole space. And as you can see, this is still being set up with all of the electronic equipment. And a very heavy duty soundproof door that is, it's gotta be 4 feet wide. So I'm gonna go back out towards the main space. Walking by that kiosk that I passed by earlier. These kiosks are already installed on different floors, so they'll all have the same information on them. And walking over this way, there's this alcove, which currently has some furniture stored in it. But this will be an interactive area for lots of different geospace-related displays. So there'll be touch screens. There's going to be an interactive 3-dimensional globe that can show different locational data. It can be changed, updated. The Geospace Manager's office will be located right here. And directly next to that is the actual Geospace. And this is still being set up, but this will be the only classroom that's on this floor. But there'll be 34-inch curved monitors in here, and these computers in here will be able to process data very quickly. So this will be an instruction space, but also primarily used by Geospace to crunch data, do locational information, do different workshops. So you'll probably see a lot of action in this room. Turning back around, coming back out of the Geospace, we have the print shop. So this will be a walk-up service print shop that does large format printing and scanning. So they have 2 large format printers set up in here, a large format scanner, and I believe there's a couple other pieces of equipment that are going to be coming down here as well. So you can get anything larger format scanned or printed up to whatever the limitations of these printers are. And finally, I'm going to end this by walking you guys through the MakerSpace. And this is the space that I manage, so I know a little bit more about everything in here, but I'm also generally the only person on this floor right now. Since I have a lot of physical setup to do, That's why I'm still on site. So the MakerSpace is this big glass open cube, and it's divided into two spaces. The first space is generally cleaner, less noisy, and then the other side is dirtier and more noise being produced. We have 8 Ultimaker S5 Pros, and these print using plastic filament. Basically, any material that you can get in a plastic spool can be printed on these machines. They have a material storage manager, and you can see these 2 machines are loaded with black plastic right now, but they can hold up to 6 at one time. You can print with 2 materials at once since they have dual heads, and they're very fast and very reliable. In the middle of this space, there will be 4 large work tables. We're still waiting on those to come in. We have a Fletcher 3100 substrate cutter. This can cut anything that you could cut with a box cutter, but it can also score and break acrylic, score and break glass up to 1/4 inch thick. It's a very useful tool for getting very accurate straight cuts. And no need for any big abrasive saw for cutting plastic. Right next to that, we have a 6-needle embroidery machine. So with this, you can embroider designs up to 6 colors of thread at one time, but you can do more than that if you change out the thread as it goes. This is just an example of something that was embroidered with this machine as a test from the factory. We're still waiting on some thread to come in for this. We do have a hat rig for it. We have a lot of different embroidery frames, so it's very versatile of a machine. It's got a big touch screen on it. You don't actually even need to go on a computer to embroider something with this. The hardest part of it's going to be the software, but you'll have access to that software inside the MakerSpace. Turning to the right, we have 3 electronics workbenches over here, and this will be for soldering, different prototyping setups. Basically anything to do with electronics, you will be able to do it in here. I also forgot to mention, we have 4 regular sewing machines, and we will also have a serger for any users to come in and use. In this location, we will also have a vinyl cutter. That's kind of what this pile of vinyl is hinting at. It's still in a box, not set up yet. Coming over to this electronic station on the end, we actually have a PCB printer. This can print circuits directly using a conductive ink. Example of a circuit that was printed on the machine, and it basically just flashes some LED lights, but that was done without caustic chemicals and done in-house. So once you can prototype with a breadboard, doing simple electronics work, you can go to the next step and make a production board. And right over here in the corner, that's my office. Currently a mess of stuff, but it's slowly getting there. And you may have noticed overhead, we have these 2 large screens. These will be able to display an overhead view from a camera. We have 2 cameras mounted overhead. There's one there and one on the other side. So we can actually have a bird's eye view of everything that's going on in the space. We can also project images from computers in the room for demo purposes or just to show what somebody's working on as a live feed. So walking over into the noisier, dirtier side, if I can get the lights to come on, we have some metalworking equipment over to the right. There's a large drill press over here. There's a 10-ton hydraulic press, just a benchtop version. We'll use this mostly for bending sheet metal. We have a portable bandsaw with a table, so we can easily cut material, and it actually has a foot pedal, so you can cut without actually having to have your one hand tied up with something. So it's a much safer setup. Right here, we have a Epilog Fusion Pro 48. This is a laser cutter. It's a dual source laser. So it has a CO2 tube and a fiber tube. The CO2 can cut anything that burns, plastics, woods. Basically, if you took a flame to it and it ignites, you can cut it up to about 3/8 of an inch thick. The fiber tube can cut, or not cut, but etch metal. So if you wanted to put your MacBook in here and engrave on the back of it, you can do that. Later today, I'm going to be doing a demo with this machine just to show you kind of what the possibilities are. We are currently waiting for another laser cutter, which is going to go in this spot where this pile of wood is. And that will have the ability to cut even thicker material. It will not be a fiber source, it'll be a CO2, but it will be able to cut much faster. Next to that, we have a vacuumformer. This will heat up plastic sheet and form that over a form or a mold. Here's an example of a car form, and this would be used for like an RC car or something like that. I actually did a test of this yesterday using some 3D printed objects. Unfortunately, they got embedded in there, and I will have to cut the plastic to get them back out. But this is, again, a machine that I'm going to be demoing later today at 2:30. Over in this corner, we'll have our tool storage room. You can see we've got some storage cabinets. I'm still working on building this, so there'll be pegboard across the whole surface there, lots of hanging tools, lots of places to store handheld tools that you'll be able to use in the space. And we'll also have a material shop. So you will be able to buy materials in the space that will be already sized, ready to use on the equipment that we have in here. On this table, there's currently that vacuum form piece and an example of an acrylic service shield that I made for the circulation desk upstairs. But we'll actually have a 5-axis CNC mill here, and it will be able to create something about the size of a baseball, but it's a good introduction to programming tool paths for a 5-axis. Next to that, we'll have a 3-axis CNC mill or a CNC router that can carve anything that's wood, plastics, similar to what the laser cutter can do, but it's a subtractive process where you're routing away material. So if you've ever used a handheld router, it's basically the same thing. It's just controlled by a robot. We've got a flammable cabinet for storing flammable paints or anything, aerosol, anything like that. And we have a 72-inch wide spray booth. We'll actually be able to spray paints, spray finishes in the space safely. This filters it out through a 3-stage filter system. And you can probably see up on the top there, those are the charcoal HEPA filters. So we won't actually get any odors in here. Behind that, we have an air compressor. And you might have noticed there's air lines routed up all the way around the room. Different pieces of equipment require air, like the vacuum former, the CNC router, since it's going to have an automatic tool changer on it. But we'll also be able to have a spray gun in here. So we don't actually need to have aerosol cans. We can mix our own paint. We can do things like that. And then right here, which this is my favorite machine of all, this is a water jet. And the water jet can cut any material, does not matter what it is, as long as it does not react with water. It pressurizes water at 30,000 PSI and then mixes in a garnet abrasive stone and shoots that through the material. It's rapid erosion. So think of like the way a sandblaster works, or even what happens at the beach. Erosion wears away at land. This is doing the same exact thing, but very, very fast. And if you look closely, parts of this machine were actually cut on a water jet. So this piece of aluminum that spans across here, that edge was cut and then it was bent on another machine. Most of this machine was actually made on another water jet. We've got an ADA accessible sink in here. We've got some storage lockers. And then in the middle of this space, just like the other side, there'll be 4 large work tables. Those are actually them on that pallet over there. I'm just waiting to assemble them so I have more space to work in here, setting things up. So how am I doing on time?
You have 7 minutes.
Oh, okay. That was pretty good. I guess I can take questions, or if anybody wants to see anything else again, I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, if you throw your questions in chat, I will read them out loud to poor Noah, so he doesn't have to try to read chat and answer questions. I'm hearing that it's pretty awesome. Very happy that it was live and that you locked yourself into the doors. That was awesome. Wow, love it.
I guess I
So
stayed
far, no
in there too
questions.
long.
So are you going to be, I'll ask a question. Are you going to be running workshops on how to use some of these spaces? And then I actually have another question from someone who is brave. So go ahead.
Yes, we will actually have a digital literacy program where you can learn different aspects, different skills that go along with different spaces on this floor. So certain skills go across different spaces, but for example, you could start working on a skill of 3D modeling, and that has obvious aspects that are useful in the MakerSpace, but also in the Immersion Studio, or even in the video production studios where you need to combine animations into a video. And those workshops will be ongoing throughout the year. There'll also be training sessions how to use each piece of equipment in the MakerSpace, so you know the safety guidelines, the starts, stops, everything like that.
Okay, our next question is from Chi Juan. I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. I apologize if I'm not. What exactly is the purpose of this MakerSpace? So
the MakerSpace, the main purpose is to provide this type of equipment, this technology, to the Texas State community that does not have access to this type of thing. There are areas like engineering, arts, different areas that already have access to tools and making, but there are certain majors and people across campus that don't have access to that kind of thing. And they still want to make things. So why shouldn't they be able to? And the goal is to kind of expose students everywhere to this type of technology, because this is how things are going to be made in the future.
Okay, the next question is from Savannah, is who all will be able to use this space?
Basically anybody. You will have to pay for consumables that you use, such as plastic for the printers, sheet goods that go on the routers or the lasers. But you can kind of think about it like, if you owned this in your house, what materials are you going through? And you don't have to pay for the capital cost of the machine. You don't have to pay for time on the machine. You're really just going to pay for that consumable that you use. And we can track all of that, and it will be passed on at cost.
Okay, and I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, Noah, I'm gonna add on to that. So that one of the things about having this space in the library is that it is accessible to everyone. And oh, I was gonna say something brilliant and it's gone because we have another question. Will someone teach us to use these? I'm assuming the spaces and the technology.
Yes, so I will be mainly doing the teaching in the MakerSpace. I will be having student workers that once they get up to speed and once they have the knowledge of how to operate the equipment, they will also be doing training demos on how to use this piece of equipment specifically. There'll also be more in-depth workshops that teach you certain skills and then how to make something specific or even more conceptual about like how to design for creating something on a piece of digital fabrication equipment.
Okay, and I remember the brilliant thing I was going to add is that if you think of libraries as places of learning and learning things and creating things, whether you're creating a research paper, you're creating a 3D object, the library is a place where anyone can do that for their, it's about lifelong learning, and learning isn't just absorbing information, it's also making things. So this is just kind of an extension of what a library is, which is very exciting to me anyway. Sorry. And we are down to the last minute. So Noah, you're going to be back at 2:30, yes?
Yes.
All right, to demo some of this. And excellent job, Noah. Thank you. Veronica says so. Okay. And I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, our MC, because she can introduce our next person. Thank you, Noah.
All right. Thank you.